Hello and welcome to Constellation League, a Warhammer podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott,
And I'm Paul.
and happy Thanksgiving to any of our Canadian viewers slash listeners. This is going to be releasing on the Sunday of Thanksgiving here in Canada, so we hope you're enjoying your Turkey Day and
Yeah, that's right.
don't fall asleep while we're talking.
Or better yet, use us as a sleeping aid and let
Yes,
our boring
dulcet
nattering
tones. Just
about
make
Warhammer put you to sleep.
Just make sure you've liked, commented, and subscribed before you do fall asleep.
Yeah, yeah. Just throw in like even a thumbs up. Even a little thumbs up would help. Yeah.
Would be really appreciated. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Emperor's Wrath tournament that just took place on October 5th at Critical Hit Gaming Lounge in Oshawa slash Curtis. Both of us were in attendance. It was a packed venue once again,
Hmm.
another 30 player type of venue, 3 rounds. Was really fun. It was an interesting day. There was a lot more, I think, variety in Xeno's list than I think
Yep.
I've seen before.
Yep.
There was some Gene Stealers. Obviously, there's
Mhm.
some Chaos Space Marines and Space Marines, but there was like your Necrons. There was somebody
Yep.
else playing Necrons. There was
Yep.
quite a few Tyranids. There was obviously a lot of Tau,
Hmm.
Gene Stealers, as I said, and then there was at least one other Votann player that was there, which was really interesting.
But yeah, that was, I mean, it was definitely the fun thing about that Votan player was that they were like the inversion of yours in terms of paint scheme,
Yeah,
where you had uh orange on your guys. I think they had blue
yeah,
or white and vice versa. So it was actually crazy to see that. I
yeah.
wonder, I didn't ask him. I don't know if you talked about it, but I wonder if he saw yours at the last tournament and got inspired by it.
That's actually a good question. I don't know. I didn't ask him
Yeah.
what made him come up with his color scheme.
I
Uh,
uh I think yeah, I think he may have just been
I would
tipping his
like
cap to you.
I would like to think that I've inspired somebody
Yeah.
into creating their own. I mean, why wouldn't I?
Yeah, the colorblind painter, you know. I'm sure he's inspired somebody's painting. Yeah,
Uh,
but yeah, it was another a fun tournament over at Critical Hit. I really do
mhm.
enjoy that venue. It never feels it's not like a sweat. I didn't feel like it was a sweat fest. I was pretty comfortable most of the time, even with
Mhm.
there being like 30 people in that space. Um, yeah, it was just it was good that way for sure.
Mhm.
Performance wise,
I was going to say I might have been
are
sweating not because of the venue,
yeah,
but because of
just
my performance, but
Consolation League is the name of the pod, and we remain firmly there. We definitely, yeah,
bottom tables, it's comfortable.
yeah, it's familiar.
It's usually close to an exit, so you've got a nice breeze.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's no pressure. No
There's no
pressure at the bottom.
um,
Um, but yeah, there was, I think, too. I remember talking to one of the other players then about their first round stuff because I think there was some Thousand Suns at this tournament.
yes, there were.
At minimum one, maybe there might have been two. There's quite a few guys there from the GTA 40K
Hmm.
team who were really, I think, wreaking some havoc on uh, us
Yeah,
us rookies and
us
lower
casual lower
lower
table
table
players.
dwellers. Yeah, the
Yes,
lower
yeah.
table dwellers were
Hmm.
definitely in for some lessons. Let's
Yeah.
call them lessons from our
Some
friends
some
in
really
the
nice
competitive
guys.
space.
Yeah, had
Absolutely.
some chats with them before the venue opened and that kind of thing.
That's
Some really
right.
nice guys. We'll
Hmm.
probably end up seeing them at the fall open again because I know a lot of them
You
play
will,
there.
yeah. Hmm.
Um, so that it was nice to see that. There was quite a few different um teams that were around. Some of it was
Yep.
brothers just naming themselves, similar to us. Some of it was the GTA 40K type of guys. And yeah, it was an interesting um, day for me because I felt like this was the first time I've played in a tournament where I felt like, okay, I really know my stuff now. I
Hmm.
feel like I know my army better, so the
Yep.
games felt like they played faster.
Yeah.
Um, by and large, they played quick
Hmm.
for what I was from what I was doing. So I was really kind of chuffed and quite proud of myself in that one, being like, oh, I
Yep.
actually do remember all of my stats are coming more naturally and more. I was pulling them up on the app more as like just reinforcement and to help the other players see like, okay, you can actually see the stats too. So if you're asking me
Right.
what's the toughness, you can actually see the toughness
Right.
and that kind of thing to help us all kind of play along. But
Hmm.
that was one kind of growth moment, I would say, for me.
Yep.
The other thing I was really proud of, and we'll get into the actual the different rounds that we played and stuff like that. Because spoiler
Hmm.
alert, once again at a tournament where the brothers show up, the brothers play
Hmm.
each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Always in the
So
last round.
always, well, it is fitting. We both like tend to lose the first two games, so there is like always a good chance we're going to be facing off against each other. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, I'd agree with what you said because I certainly felt in that game that you did seem to have all your rules down. You weren't stat checking anything like.
I have
Yeah,
in
it
the
was almost
past.
like you knew it all. You had it all off the cuff, which I mean, I think we were amongst one of the first teams to finish.
I think so.
Just looking around the room when we were done, which that alone I felt better about.
Hmm.
But yeah, let's jump into
Sure.
before so we're not bouncing all over the place and stuff like that. Um, yeah, let's jump into the lists and the matches and.
Sure.
So I ran the same Necrons list as I did at the previous tournament. So Hypercrypt with two.
I was going to say it's not the exact same list. You've
It's
actually
not the
changed it
exact
up.
same list. Yeah, sorry. I dropped the Plasmancer, the Immortals, and the Canoptic Reanimator, and I added a Nightbringer, the Catan Shard of the Nightbringer,
Hmm.
which I was very happy with how it performed. It did well
Yes,
in all my games.
it
It's
is an impressive model. It
Yeah,
is quite
not
the
to look
stat
at,
line. Quite the
but its
stat
stat
line.
line is something else. It
Hmm.
is something else. Um, so yeah, so that was really the only changes I made from the previous tournament. And my first match was against a guy named Chase from GTA 40K, who was rocking demons. And I think he was rocking a Nurgle list.
And I believe
'Cause
he placed second
I think he came
in the
first. I just
first in the
looked it up.
tournament.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I think I still have it up here. His placing was he came first and it was
Oh.
91, 98, and 72. So he did very, very well.
Hmm.
Um, rocking his Chaos Demons. He had two, so he had Rodagus, which is like a greater unclean one.
Hmm.
He had another greater unclean one. He
Hmm.
had 3 units of, I think they're called soul grinders. They're like big crab demon guys, like with biomechanical legs.
Okay. I don't think I've
They
played them.
three like big tough models, shooting, melee, all the good stuff. Um, and then he had 2 units of, I think, plague bearers, and then a couple of units of nurglings of varying size. So one, I
Hmm.
think, was a 6 nurgling unit, and the other one was a 3. And then some bloat drones, or not bloat drones. There's some kind of like Nurgle drone demon unit.
Okay.
And it was my first time playing demons, so I was
Just about to ask
very
that.
very excited to play it and see how it went. They have an ability kind of I think it's called Shadows of the Warp, which is a lot like the Necron Canoptic Court thing. So you control an object, your deployment zone's always within the shadow, which grants them bonuses. If they
Hmm.
control two or more no man's land objectives, that becomes the shadow.
Hmm.
So the bonuses extend,
Yeah.
yada yada yada. Um, Now, what I did differently this time, after talking to, both Brian and Dave, is I took some of the advice we'd received in our talks with them to heart. So this time, I was like drilling in my head, deployment, 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 deployment. So this time I actually did it. I did. I guess last time I didn't let it sink in enough before I before I did it. But this time I was like, I screwed up last time. I ignored my deployment, so I'm like, it's not happening again. And I went fixed for all three games,
Hmm.
which for me made a huge difference.
I
Because
think
even though my placing was more or less the same, I placed, I think, well, where did I finish? Overall, I came 18th, which is great for me.
hmm.
Um, but my points were higher this
Yes.
time around, a lot higher. It feels like it's a massive step forward.
Hmm.
Um, so I kind of introduced myself to Chase. We got chatting about our list. He knew what my stuff did. Obviously, an experienced player, super friendly, which was great. And and was really helpful as things went along because we did the same fixed missions. So I did behind enemy lines and established locus, and he did behind enemy lines and established locus. And so, as the game progressed, and he would um, offer some advice. I'd be like, "Oh, I don't think I can do that here," and then he'd be like, "Oh no, I think you're absolutely clear in this spot." Like just
Hmm.
kind of friendly.
Yeah.
And then so the final result was 91-61 to Chase's favor. Um, the Soul Grinders, these three demon vehicle monster units that were huge, they were a lot to try and deal with. I managed to kill two of the three of them,
Hmm.
but it took all my resources. And he knew to stay away from the Nightbringer, so we debriefed the match after I played, and I just said, I asked, "What did you think about the list and how I played?" And he made a point. He pointed out that my deployment of my Canoptic Doomstalker and my um, Nightbringer. He's like he gave the advice of just try and cover two objectives in no man's land. Don't worry about trying to spread out and capture three, because that's kind of how I deployed.
Right.
Um, he's like, if you focus more on two, it's much more easily manageable for you.
Hmm.
You'll be scoring points consistently. So I was like, okay, that's good advice. And then he suggested keeping the Nightbringer and the Monolith kind of closer together, um, so that and so that you're increasing the threat from two kind of
Right.
avenues to really help push forward on that. And then he suggested the Doomstalker almost behind them. So again, like there was a lot of threat output
Right.
in that kind of one region that I was focusing on. So I was like, okay, that's good advice. And then he gave me a tip about I dumped some Necron warriors right on the center objective to do established locus because I think I got the first turn in that match. I did. And then he basically shot them right
Yeah.
off the board. And he's like, had I just deployed them behind this cover where I could have out of the monolith, it was within the 6 inches, he wouldn't have gotten the free round of shooting and to just pick them all up. So it was like another thing to sort of consider that you
And
don't.
would you have still scored the locust?
Yeah, because you have to
Okay.
just be within six, I think, of the
Stick to the
center of the
center.
battle. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so so great match. Yeah, and we just talked a little bit about the list. I went three Necron Warrior units. He's like, they didn't really do too much for you. They did a little bit here and there,
Hmm.
move blocking. So it gave me a lot to think about. So how did your first match go?
My first match, of course, this would only happen to me.
Hmm.
But the only other Votan player at the tournament, he and I got matched up. So instantly I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. And I had taken the same kind of thing. I've been thinking a lot about, okay, what's my deployment going to be? What are the primaries of this mission, and what's the special, like the twist that you can do on it? What's the mission rule and all that kind of stuff. And I decided that I played a little bit more aggressive than I think I have in the past. Everything
Good.
was kind of deployed on the line. Everything was getting out. I would, I called it my hecaton of fun list. It's three
Hmm.
hecatons.
Hmm.
Um, my 20 warriors, two Sagittars, three squads of Hearthguard, and I have some Jaegers. Jaegers, I'm
Hmm.
still trying to figure out exactly what to do with.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of trying to spread them out so that they're a bit of a move block right off the bat to also put them
Hmm.
on an objective. Use them as something that forces them to do something with them on turn one that buys
Hmm.
the rest of my army time to kind of move and be in place and still shoot things type of
Right.
idea. That's kind of what I was using them for.
Hmm.
Worked out relatively okay in two of the games, not so much in our game.
No.
Um, but yeah, so that's kind of what the list was and how I was deploying it. It was an interesting one because when you're fighting an army that is the same as you,
Yeah.
everything turns into, well, it's either hitting on fours or fives, depending on what your buffs
Right.
and reductions are. And so having judgment tokens, it was like we were literally drawing secondaries and
Hmm.
we were scoring points. And I think at most of the game there was like 1 point in it on either side.
Right.
So we were playing it through and we ended up taking a little bit longer because Votan has so much shooting and there's
Hmm.
so much to be doing with
Hmm.
them that it was taking a long time for the two of us to kind of be going.
Hmm.
Um, so we ended up actually just talking out the last round or so, and
Hmm.
we kind of agreed that okay, this would actually end up being a draw. So we ended up just putting it in at 50-50 and we just kind of
Right.
threw the game there.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting because the way that I was playing it, I kind of we it was I believe it was Search and Destroy in the first one,
Hmm.
and is it Scorched Earth? The one where you've got an alpha and omega objective. And I decided
Hidden
to
supplies, isn't that
hidden.
hidden supplies?
I don't remember. I think
Yeah.
anyway, it was one of those ones where I kind of ignored the objective that was going to be going away soon and just
Hmm.
kind of stuck on the middle and then the one that was sticking around till the end of the game that was going to be worth 15.
Right.
Um, and so those were the kind of objectives that I was sticking on, still making sure I was scoring some secondaries with cleansing and sabotaging and all these other kind of things. But I was really happy because it was just the game was flowing
Yeah.
and we both kind of knew our armies and were able to be like, oh, you know, you can do this, you can't do that one. Don't forget this kind of maneuver and that kind of thing. So we're kind of helping each other out a little bit,
Yep.
um, and that kind of thing. It was good. It was just really I was hoping for the win, obviously, but
Hmm.
it was just his army was very similar to mine in the place that he had two hecatons and I
Yep.
think three Sagittars. He had a couple Berserks where I had a couple more Hearthguard and that kind of thing. Um, but it was just really a fairly even matched type of scenario. So we were just really just kind of battering into each other for a good amount of the game. But it was a really fun one to have at the get-go
Hmm.
and to not walk away right away with a loss was kind of like, okay,
Yeah. That would be, yeah.
it was a little bit of a like, okay, perfect. Now I can see what's
Yep.
going to happen in the second game. And so I went into
Yeah.
my second game with a little bit more confidence than usual.
Nice.
And I think that helped. Spoiler alert, I didn't crack the 60 mark on any of my games for
Um,
points wise, just shy of it, like 58, 59 type of
mhm.
thing. Um, but that's just the way it kind of went. So how did your second round go? And
Well, my second round was against a real piece of work, the guy you played in your first round. Steve, Votan player and the prospect of Team War Mallet. The who I like to call the other brothers. Shout out to Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan and is it Jordan and Justin?
Yeah, yeah, I think that was their
Yeah,
names.
we were chatting with them obviously before
Hmm.
we met them at the last tournament, and they're a good bunch of guys, and it was great to see them, and I look forward to playing them again. But I went right into it was like one of those weird things, right? You finish playing a guy, and it's like, hey, now you're playing the other brother.
At the
Um,
exact same table. Oh no, that was
oh no, we ended up,
I stayed at the
yeah,
table. You
you
moved
stayed
on.
at the table. I moved on. So first time playing, I think Necrons against Votan. Because I don't think had we practiced before. Maybe.
We maybe have, but it's your first time playing someone other than me with a
Yeah,
Votan
with the
army.
Votan army. Um, so good match. Very close. Um, time ran out on us again. So Steve last time I think had played Custodes, and I played him in
Yes.
that match, and then I guess he decided to switch it up and do a Votan one. Um, so of course, he's still getting the hang of that, and we all
Hmm.
understand that. So it did play a little bit slower, and like you said, um, there's just a lot of shooting. They're
Yeah.
rolling a lot of dice all the time, the Votan guys, and unfortunately, I failed quite a few saves on this one, so the dice didn't go in my favor as I'd hoped. And
Hmm.
I made a mistake of tagging one of his vehicles in combat with my monolith. So there's a strategic error in this match.
Okay.
Um, I hope to tag it in so that I don't know why I thought this would work, but so that to avoid a round of its shooting. But of course, with big guns never tire and the judgment tokens and the volume of fire, it didn't make any goddamn difference, right?
No. Yeah.
And so he blew the thing up. And it's for me, um, the monolith really is the linchpin of my list.
It's a big
Uh,
loss.
it's a big loss. It's 400 points or whatever. It puts out a ton of damage.
Hmm.
It has great abilities, like so all those things. So once it's gone, I feel it big
Yep.
time. And he just like he poured all his fire into it. And then so had I not made that error and if I'd played a little bit cagier with it, because he was very so in my game with Chase, Chase was just like he knew exactly his moves. It's almost like chess, right? Like he knew the
Hmm.
pattern to put his stuff out and how it would put me
Yep.
into checkmate. Whereas Steve played very cagey, worked very hard to keep a lot of his units out of line of sight.
Hmm.
Um, and I should have probably, been a little bit cagier with that monolith or
Hmm.
picked it up at the end of his turn and put it into
Yeah.
hyperphase. In order to like spare it a little bit and bring it in somewhere else where, I could have leveraged it against them. But having said that, I scored very high in this turn. So we only got to uh, halfway through the fourth turn and had to talk out the rest. But even at that, it was 95 to 84 in Steve's favor.
That's really good.
So I did really good. I maxed out my secondaries like all the time. I was doing really well on that front. It was just things, the units, once the
Hmm.
monolith was gone, the other stuff that was on the table was getting picked up pretty quickly,
Yep.
just in firing, right?
Yep.
Not in combat, but just the volume of firing. Um, but yeah, how did what was the outcome of your second match?
Yeah, I was just gonna say before I get to that, I
Hmm.
mean, it's really good to be cagey because as you see in our game, when you start losing the Votan, you feel it very quickly. And as soon as something doesn't have judgment tokens on it, like that's where things will fall apart for that army. So it's good that he was playing it cagier from his perspective to keep as much of his
Hmm.
army on the table as he possibly could. That was a
Hmm.
really good move. My second round was once again, I can't go to a tournament without fighting Tau. So I went into a Retaliation Cadre once
Hmm.
again. I believe it was Retaliation Cadre. Um, Quite a few suits,
Hmm.
a couple of the great big guys. And the fundamental error that I made in my list was um, I didn't make, strangely enough, I didn't make my Votan list an anti-vehicle
Okay.
anything. I didn't have
Right.
anything that was a can opener. All I had was decided to go with the loadout on my hecatons of the cyclic ion cannon because
Hmm.
I thought it does a D6 plus 3 shots, strength
Hmm.
9, -2 AP, 2 damage flat. I thought, you know what? If anything, I'm going to be getting volume here.
Volume,
Volume
yeah.
is going to work in my favor on a lot of the stuff.
Hmm.
Perfect for infantry, perfect for some single models and things like that. I
Right.
think, like even going up against your Catan, I was able to even with its buffs, I was able to take some wounds and things
Well,
off.
hang on. Let's focus on turn two.
But like it's a volume play that I was going for on that
Hmm.
one because I thought, okay, if I'm going up and there's going to be some Space Marines, then I should be able to pick up like this thing is picking up Space Marines on twos because it's strength
Yep.
9,
Oh yeah.
-2, 2 damage flat. Like every miss, every failed save is a dead Marine. So I was like, okay,
100%.
this is probably half decent to go into some infantry type of things. Didn't really go up against anything else infantry. Yeah. So I made the mistake of not going with the conversion beamer on these ones, which again give you sustained D3 on fours if it's outside the 12 inches. Um, and like that's just it's just helping you so much when you're at that 12-inch range or outside that
Hmm.
12-inch range. Um, so I was really struggling to clear some crisis suits and that kind of thing. So I decided to put my judgment tokens in on anything that was going to be doing the line of sight mechanic that the Tau use. So the
Yes, the
guiding,
spotting,
yeah, the
guiding,
spotting
guiding,
and
spotting,
guiding.
guiding. Yeah.
That's where I was like, I went through and I was like, okay, these stealth suits, I'm throwing it on all these stealth suits. I'm throwing it on these little things to try and pick them up right away.
Hmm.
Um, and for the most part, it was working.
Hmm.
Some failed saves here, some failed rolls, hit rolls there, type of thing meant I wasn't clearing squads quite as fast as I wanted to. But by and large, I was shutting that kind of component down. But it still means that in order to do that, I have to get out and be line of sight anyway. So if
Hmm.
I'm in range, these things can still do a hell of a lot of damage. And again, I was deploying rather aggressively on the line,
Hmm.
getting out, getting the Hearthguard out, just doing barrage of fire, barrage of attacks, just doing everything I can, using as many strats as I possibly could. So farming my CP and then just starting to use them. So I'm doing the sustained ones, sustained twos,
Hmm.
um, trying to do, I think I managed to do no, I didn't. I didn't actually manage a reactive reprisal on anybody, which I was really hoping to. Which is a cool strat where if after somebody shoots, you can treat it as if it's your shooting phase and shoot with that same model. And so it's 2 CP in order to do it. So I was trying to hold on to that a couple times. That probably
Okay.
cost me some things, um, some points, but by and large, that's just what I was doing. But when it came down to it, I was just losing models.
Yeah.
And I was losing hecatons because some of the battle suits are enormous and they just put out like with their rail guns and all sorts of stuff, they can just put through so much damage.
I
Um,
take it you didn't get a save against the railroad guns, or was it like a six up with
it would be like a 6 up. The Votann have like a pretty bad save on a lot of things. The Hecaton has a 6, but as soon
hmm.
as if I'm not popping void armor,
Hmm.
like if it's on a heavy gun, I'm not really getting a save, or my save is automatically a 5 or 6.
Right.
So it's automatically kind of pushing things up that way. On infantry, their save is usually pretty low or pretty high as well. So again,
Mm.
it's kind of picking and choosing. Like, oh, there's a lot of fire coming, and they haven't attacked my hecatons yet. I know they're going to get it. I have to save some CP so that that can use the void, which means, okay,
Right.
my Hearthguard are just going to be obliterated potentially in some shooting. Even though they have a 2 up save, I didn't necessarily get some great saves on a lot of things. And it was just, it is what it is. It seems to be the way that it goes with Tau. For
Hmm.
me, it's a tricky army for me to try and get into because I can't
Hmm.
seem to get the right vehicle killing firepower that I want into it.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I find the conversion beamers really swingy. Same with the las cannons on the Sagittars. I mean, there's a reason why people call them casino cannons because they are really hit or miss, and
Right.
they're either working for you or they're not working for you. And when they're not working for you, you've just got a big model that's a huge target on the table.
Right. Right. Who was it that you played with the Tau?
I paid one of the guys from that JMB Books
Oh,
Warhammer
right.
Elite or
Out in
team.
Trenton.
Yeah,
Yep.
a really nice guy named Pat.
Hmm.
Was really good, knew his stuff, was a great player, really good opponent.
Hmm.
I find those JMB guys are really nice guys to be playing against and really
Cool.
personable and everything. But again, it was a close game for a while, but
Hmm.
the end score was 58 to 75.
Right. Okay. It just got away from you at the end. And did
It
that
just
one go
got
to?
away from me at the end. We played all the way through on that one.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good at least. You have to play it out entirely.
Yeah.
Okay. And then did you guys debrief it at all? Were you
Uh,
like, what do you think I went wrong or
didn't really debrief or anything like that. We just
no?
kind of, um, you know, said good game and just left it as it was because there wasn't, I knew going into it, I was like, okay, I don't have the right, even if I was deploying this right, I don't have the right weapons to be going up against this right now.
Really?
Um,
Even with the, because I would have thought the strength 9 -2 flat 2 damage. I guess there's a lot of 4-up invulns with those crisis suits, but
yeah.
when they fail, they just need to fail two, and that's a crisis suit gone, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The little ones. So,
Yeah. And but that's also predicated on me like rolling the 6 plus the 3. If I'm rolling like they had on the back of their shirts, a D6 plus 3 equals 4.
right. Yeah. Yeah, those
Like
are awesome shirts. Yeah. D6 plus 3 equals 4. Yeah.
so, so
Exactly.
instantly it's like yes, 100%. I
Yeah.
got 4 shots, maybe two of those are hitting, maybe one of those is wounding. So I'm if they fail the save, then okay, maybe I've taken a crisis suit to
Right.
half,
Right.
but they're in squads of like 3 to 4, and it's like, oh shit, I haven't even taken care of one. I haven't
Right.
knocked them into a battle shock state. I haven't done anything like that.
Right.
Some of them have the uppy downy rule that they can move around.
Yes.
Um, so it just gets really tricky. I think the thing that I'm finding tricky with Tau specifically
Hmm.
is I I'm having a hard time figuring out what my priority targets need to be for
Mm.
my
Hmm.
initial 4 judgment
Judgment
tokens that go
tokens.
out.
Yeah, well, I think this kind of segues nicely into our game
Yep,
because,
100%.
round three, because this one will just debrief.
Yep.
And then I'll talk about, where I think yours fell apart, and you can about obviously like what mistakes I made. But round three played a real piece of work. Some
Yeah,
guy
some
from the
shithead.
Consolation League, yeah, some shit for brains. Votan player
A
from the
monkey.
Consolation League, yeah. So thankfully, you and I got paired up, which I said to you at the time, it's always fun because it's fun when we get to play, and we never get to play WTC. We
No.
always like homebrew
Yeah.
mixed match of Age of Sigmar,
Try our
mess
best
of
to make something, and it's like, well, remember
something
that
up.
this one's line of sight
Yeah,
blocking.
this tree, this statue, when it's turned like this, is line of sight blocking. I think your Titan's terrain is something we should probably try and
Yeah.
use because
Next
it's more at
time,
least
next time we play, we'll
WTC
do that for sure.
adjacent. Because it does kind of have that footprint with all those
Hmm.
boxes. Titan's Terrain, check them out online or at your local retailers. Not an official sponsor of the show yet, but
We'll see
maybe
what happens.
maybe in the near future. Uh, so yeah, so we finally faced each other
Hmm.
in this competitive space. And I shouldn't say finally, because our first tournament, Critical Hit, we played each other as
Yep.
well. So from my point of view, talk about aggressive. Yeah, you deploy aggressively. All your hecatons were like in a line right along your deployment zone.
Hmm.
I was like, holy smokes, you're not wasting any time.
Yep.
And then I th and then you deployed your Jaegers in a line, kind of between uh the middle objective and another objective. And I
Hmm.
was like, that's interesting. And then you put judgment tokens on my scarabs, which I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Um,
And I'll talk
and
about that in a second.
sure. And then turn one, did I go? I went
You
first.
went first. Yeah.
And I'd screwed up my own deployment because I went first and didn't put myself in a position to score even the 2 points on established locus. And I kind of said to you after I played the whole round, I was like, I've completely screwed that up
Hmm.
because I ignored my own secondaries.
Yep.
for whatever reason. So, anyways, I think I killed a unit though for the 4 points because it was purge the foe.
Yeah. You
Purge the
took care of
foe,
the Jaegers.
and yeah, I killed your Jaegers right away, and I was kind of like, huh, that was an interesting move. So, what were you thinking with
So
that line?
the idea that I have with the Jaegers and this is where this was my first time at really using them, and I'm trying to
Hmm.
figure out the actual usage of them.
Hmm.
Um, but was I forgot that you don't have scouts. So deploying
Right.
them in the
And no
middle
infiltrators, no
across and no
scouts.
infiltrate. So I really just hung them out to dry, which was a huge fucking mistake. Um, but that's one of the things that if you've got scout or you've got anything else, I place them 9 inches outside your deployment zone. Um, I'm instantly kind of also creating a line for you that you can't get past, that you have to at least spend turn one dealing with them before you can move up any further type of thing. Again,
Hmm.
not necessarily a huge deal when you've got something that can teleport or move itself through things or have like a good amount of movement that it's got. Um, it wasn't necessarily the greatest move against your army. And then the Scarabs, the thought there was they're a small unit. I
Hmm.
can wipe them out in a first round of shooting and farm
Hmm.
my CP right away.
Hmm.
So if I kill anything that has a judgment token on from the beginning of the game in rounds
Hmm.
1 and 2, I get 3 CP for those things.
Per unit or just for one unit?
Just for the one. So if I killed two in the one go, it would
It's
just
still
be
three
the
CP.
three. So it was
Hmm.
still one of those things of whether I kill one of these things or two of these things, I'm going to get 3 CP on my next go around, which means
Hmm.
by turn two, I'm instantly up to potentially 5 CP in my bank that I can start
Right.
using. That's the idea is like, okay, I'm putting it on something small and easy to get rid of.
Hmm.
That was kind of the thinking I had. Also knowing that your warriors and stuff were likely going to be staying behind things,
Hmm.
where I wouldn't have line of sight on them and I wouldn't be able to get to
Yeah.
them. So those putting them judgment tokens on them was going to be a waste of time.
Hmm.
Putting it on the monolith might have been good, but
Oh yeah.
I didn't have the weapon that would actually crack that to any real degree. And so
Oh,
then I was like,
right.
okay, so what am I putting it on? I'm putting it on Scarabs and I'm putting it on the Catan because maybe I can do something to him to help, even though he's reducing things by half and even
Half.
though he's got
Hmm.
this invul save and feel no pains, like at least volume can go into him and hopefully other things will work in my favor. And that was really all I had. And then there was the Canoptic group. I put it on one of the other big kind of melee guys or something. I
The
threw
Scorpex, I think.
the
I think the
Scorpax. I
Scorpex.
threw it
Yeah.
on them, and that was like I sat there, and it was kind of like looking at the towel. It was like I don't know who my priority targets need to be because
Yeah.
I know the other small chaff that I would normally put it on are not going to
Hmm.
be out, so I'll have just wasted judgment tokens on them. So at least if I kill the smaller ones, I'm farming a little bit of CP in different rounds.
Right.
Um, And then, yeah, the game, it was just a kind of a bit of a comedy of errors for me because it was like, okay, I don't have judgment tokens on the things that are attacking me the most or that I should be attacking back, which means
Hmm.
I'm hitting on fours, I'm maybe wounding on fives,
Right.
um, and that kind of thing. And then it's got invuln saves, so I didn't have what I needed in order to really respond to your army. And Votan also don't really have a good response for anything that deep strikes. Like
Hmm.
like holding something in my home objective. I
Hmm.
keep some warriors back there to make home objective sticky and then kind of help to screen a little bit, but I don't have anything that I can sacrifice to do a lot of screening.
Right.
Like I need the bikes out to be moving to stay at board edges and to be
Hmm.
moving so that I can pick
Hmm.
them up and try and score secondaries. I
Hmm.
need the Sagittars to be carrying other guys out into other objectives so that I can get some bodies on things and that they
Right.
can maybe do some shooting. And the Hecatons are really to deliver the Hearthguard out and into the middle of the table, as well as to create a bit of a line.
Hmm.
Really is what I try and do is kind of get out to the middle and then just sit there with them as best I can. Like
Right.
once you did behind enemy lines and were in my home objective, there was no point in me even trying to get a hecaton back to try and respond to the monolith, because with
Right.
its death rays and its whiplash or whatever it's called, like those are
Particle whip. Yeah.
article whip. Those things are high damage, high AP,
Hmm.
like easy for you to hit on, even into a hecaton. They're not necessarily hard for you to get a hit,
No.
um, or a
No, it
wound
hits on
onto them.
threes. Yeah.
So like it was just I was just like I don't know, I don't have the response that I need for this.
Hmm.
And because I didn't have enough things to be killing, it also meant that I only ever had like one CP at a time, because I would use Void Armor on my Hecatons to try and reduce the AP so that they could try and stick around so I could still have the save on them. But I didn't have anything else to really be playing any fun strats with. Um, like even going into melee using something like Warrior's Pride, where if you have judgment tokens, the more I think I did manage to use that one where my Hearthguard came in at a come in at a -2
Hmm.
AP on their melee attack, but with Warrior Pride, if that other unit has one or two judgment tokens, you gain 1 or 2 AP. So all of a
Right.
sudden they're like -4 AP into a bunch of guys, and
Right.
they can pick them up pretty easily in that regard. There
Mm.
was little things like that I was able to do, but I just didn't. It was kind of the thing that I had with Tau. It was just I don't feel like I have a response for certain armies, and that could just be skill level.
Hmm.
Well, it's 100% skill level on top of the army. The unit list is really small for Votann. Um,
Hmm.
and it was something that I think me and the Northern Nights guys talked about in the last podcast is um, I don't know if it was on air or if it was off air that we were talking, but the Votann they have they don't necessarily have a great breadth of what their data sheets are. We've
Hmm.
got the tank that does the one thing, and we've got a
Right.
Hearthguard that do one thing, um, or the bikes that do one thing. But the bikes don't partner with other things really well, other
Hmm.
than judgment tokens, and that's just the army rule is like something that they work with. But the units themselves don't have a lot of synergy amongst themselves to be able to
I
piggyback
see.
off each other and help each other kind of around. At least that's the experience that I'm having with them. So it's a little, I'll be completely honest, it's a little discouraging.
Yeah, well, I
Um,
was just about to ask about that because ultimately I ended up winning that match. It was like neck and neck until
yeah,
turn, was it the bottom of turn three or like
I
the
think
start of
so.
turn four, when I basically tabled you.
Yeah, yeah, you took out my
Um,
hecatons and that was the end of it.
that was the end of it. And the ending score ended up being 76-59 in my favor, but it was literally, I think it was like a point apart the
Yeah.
rest of the time. And then it kind of all fell
And
down.
I think that's how it was for all of my games where things were really close until about
Mhm.
end of turn 3/turn 4 type of area. And then once I start losing enough bodies, the army just falls apart on me.
Right.
And again, skill level is a huge component of that.
Yeah.
Um, but that's kind of what it is. It's like I'm holding in, I'm holding in, I'm holding in. Oh shit, I've just lost the objectives. There goes
So,
my primaries, and then I'm just
yeah.
scrounging for my secondaries.
Now, post this tournament, you and I have obviously talked before the show, and you did point out something about st how sticky works, how it remains yours until a unit that out
Out
OCs
OCs.
you. So now, before we get ahead of ourselves, because you were before the show started, you're sort of talking about your next event. It's the 2-day Toronto Open,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah,
you're
the fall open.
contemplating switching armies.
I'm contemplating for a little bit of a reprieve and some fresh
Mm,
air,
hmm.
taking Space Marines. But then the other part of me is like, don't be a quitter. Just suck it up,
Mm,
Buttercup, and keep moving.
yeah,
Ron Swanson's Book of How to Be a Man, page 1,
yeah,
be a man.
exactly. Be him in,
Um,
yeah.
so I'm thinking, I'm kind of. I'm toying with the idea. I'll probably still end up taking my Votan army because I've been sticking with it this long, and it's kind of one of those just suck it up and
Hmm.
see what you can do with it. Either get better at it or stop complaining.
Right.
Um, like getting better at it is going to be hard. But yeah, the sticky objectives thing, from everything I've been reading about it, that's something that I haven't been utilizing.
Hmm.
Getting 5 warriors on something is automatically 10 OC on something. So even if they move
Right.
off, somebody won't control that until they've got more than 10 OC.
Is it equal to or more than?
It's I think it's equal to or more than. I think it's equal
Okay.
to. So if you were to move on with any
Anything
battle
that's,
line,
yeah,
typically, will
because that's a
kind of
big
get there.
advantage. You take your, so if you up your bricks from 5 to 10,
Hmm.
and you basically use the hecaton as a big buggy to move them,
As the
and
transport, yeah.
then they jump out and they're on the next objective. So that's 20 OC.
Hmm.
And like that's not a lot of people have models that are 20. It makes them dedicate a lot to take it.
Yeah.
I would probably reach out to somebody though, to like maybe in one of
I
the
want to double
discords,
check just to make
throw it out
sure
in
if
one of the
that's true.
discords and see, or listener, if you know the answer to this,
Hmm.
if that's how it works, please, comment in the place, throw it down in the comments, because that would give you a huge advantage.
Otherwise, I can't see the real benefit of something being sticky.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like it's sticky,
Well,
so
other than you
so
don't have
you
to sit
can,
on it all day, but
yeah,
yeah.
you can move off. But as soon as somebody with like a Nurgling,
Hmm.
could that take a
No,
stickied
it doesn't.
objective?
It
I
has
don't think it
zero
can.
C.
It's got zero OC.
Yeah.
Um,
But
it's
there's
just
other
things like
units that
that.
deep strike, like my oh God, what are those guys called that? Give me, bear with me.
Yeah,
Sorry, people.
your
I'm
guy that did the
totally
Logos.
blanking. The Hexmark Destroyers.
Yeah.
I think they are one OC.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Does that
and they
really
have deep
take it?
strike.
I don't know.
Doesn't I? Yeah, I don't think it does.
Yeah.
Not according to what you kind of sent me and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So you're toying with the idea of
Toying
doing
with the
Space
idea.
Marine, but you won't have any reps. You won't have any practice with
That's
Space
the
Marine
thing that's
going
really
into it.
holding me off as well, is like I won't have any refresher experience with them playing
Hmm.
in playing in Pariah Nexus at all, really. Um, Primarily I've been playing Votan and Pariah, so
Yeah, and I mean, so you got to throw
it would
together
be
a list,
test it.
uh, test it. I mean, you could just throw a list together and go, but like if you want to at least win a game, you're probably gonna
Yeah.
have to practice with it, and then you got to decide what am I doing? Am I hammer and anvil or whatever it's called, Anvil Siege Force,
Yeah.
or am I doing
Gladius.
Gladius? Because
Gladius all the way.
Yeah, Gladius seems to have all the bells and whistles to,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm more than likely, it's just one of those things where I'm in this state of slight discouragement. And I'm
yeah.
like, mm.
Do you have any league games coming up to
I just
before
played
the
a
fall
league game
open?
on the Tuesday,
So
before,
not before the open.
not before the open, no.
So I think you should,
I'm
yeah,
gonna,
I think,
I'm probably gonna stick with the list. I'm just at this thing of being like, I'm really down on myself right now, if I'm being
yeah,
completely honest.
right.
Because I felt like I knew my stuff really well, and I felt like I
Hmm.
was doing things, and being so close for so long in some of the games was really
Hmm.
good. It's just that I couldn't stick the landing. So
Right.
it's figuring that kind of thing out. I will say your list moving to fixed objectives is a complete game changer for you and your list.
100%. 100%.
Like,
Me playing fixed, I felt like I knew my rules and I was playing fast.
hmm.
Not that playing fast is a be all and end all. I just don't want to be a slow player. I don't want to
Yep.
like take away from someone else's time. Like we all spend our effort to get
Hmm.
into these tournaments, and I don't want to be that guy dragging like
Yep.
a whole match down because I'm like taking forever. But that aside, just my flow,
Hmm.
it just helped me know what I was doing from round to round.
Yep.
It really those were. the focusing on deployment and focusing on fixed just made the game much easier for me.
It's a
That
huge game changer for you. I could see it in your play
mhm,
style and everything. Like
mhm,
it just makes everything so much more focused.
yeah,
It makes me jealous, to be perfectly
yeah.
honest, because
How many
the
Necrons
that's
do you have at home?
that's the challenge. The challenge I have with the Voten is we were looking through like, okay, what fix could they do? And I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know that they're really equipped to do any of the fix.
Well,
There
so
probably
they
are some
could do
again.
behind and they could do established locus because the bikes you can pick up, right?
Yes, yes.
At the end of your opponent's turn.
At the end of your opponent's turn, if they're not within engagement range of an
Yep.
enemy unit and within 6 of the table of a table edge.
They have to be within 6 of a table edge as
Six,
well.
it has to be within 6 or 9. I'll have to double check that one, but
Okay.
yeah, they have to be within that of a table edge in order to be picked up.
Because depending on if you use them to that, because then I guess turn 3 you can bring them on
I
from your
was going to
opponent's
say
board edge.
only by
So
turn 3 can you do that.
turn 1 and 2 you're having to like um scout and then advance 2 units into the deployment zone, which you're basically throwing away 2 units of bikes
This is the,
potentially.
yeah.
Potentially. Or you just play safe, get established locus in the center for your 2 points with your Jaegers, for example,
Yep.
and then keep the bikes in reserve, and then maybe you can rapid ingress one unit of bikes. Because
Hmm.
do they have deep strike?
They
No.
don't have deep strike. No, but you
Or
could.
maybe your Hearthguard, or what are those? The dwarf
Yeah,
Terminators.
Hearthguard have deep strike if you put the
So
crest on them.
boom, a brick of them in the back. It just gives someone something else to worry about, right? And then,
Hmm.
okay, so they don't shoot or anything, but they're tanky enough that someone who doesn't like say someone who like pushes forward, and quite a few people do push forward all their heavy stuff
Yep.
and leave a few things, like usually leave chaff kind of spread out in their home to screen you out. But those are small models, small footprint. You could
Yeah.
probably squeeze them in somewhere. Yeah, the Votan, I wouldn't be surprised if the book comes out that there is an uppy downy detachment or something, an enhancement or something,
Right.
some other kind of gimmick to allow like, and it would be thematic, I guess, because they are kind of like there was an Explorer League, if I
Hmm.
remember right from the ninth edition codex, like the one of the leagues is based on exploration. So they should be speedy. They should have like
Yeah.
a mechanic that helps with that. Um, but
Yeah. The biggest thing that I'm contemplating doing with my list is once I confirm a little bit more about the stickies,
mhm,
is using the hecatons as a transport and then
mhm,
throwing the Hearthguard into Deep Strike.
yeah,
Um, just so that I've got more flexibility of where that I can put them because their movement is really limited. So even when they come out of the hecaton, they've only got 5 inches. So
yeah,
like
yeah.
they're once they're out, they're not really going anywhere
No, no,
at
you're
any speed. So once they're out on an objective, they're kind of just sticking around that objective for the
right.
remainder of the game.
Yeah,
So having that flexibility of movement, I think is probably the right call for
yeah,
them.
yeah. I think so. I think so. We'll have to, if you have ideas about what fixed objectives, what fixed missions that
Hmm.
would be good for the leagues of Votan, throw it in the comments, please.
Yeah,
Uh, uh, because that would really help us up. Because I think it'll change your game just to not be guessing, oh, can I do? I've got containment, I've got bring it down. I'm like,
that's the thing. It's
you
like,
have one vehicle and it's out of line of sight, and I can't move anything to hit it. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh,
or
so that one's
like
wasted.
getting marked for death in like
Marked for
round
death.
3 or 4. You're like, oh, come on.
Mm,
Like anything that's going to be hidden is already hidden at that point. So it's all right. 1, 2, 3. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, there
Well,
goes that
yeah.
one.
When you're in a short range army, you're going to be like, yeah, these three at the back
Yeah.
that you're not going to be able to move to and see.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think fixed will definitely help you. Yeah, we'll
I should try it out and just see how it
I
goes.
think you should test it. I absolutely think you should test it. if
I
you
could
get a
try it
chance
out.
over the holiday weekend or uh what day is it? As we're recording this, it's Tuesday, so maybe you could
Hmm.
squeeze in a game before Thanksgiving or just after and
Maybe.
uh test it out before
Hmm. Before the
the
open.
fall open. But you know what? The open's over 2 days, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
So the fall open you're going to is in Toronto. It was
Four
mentioned
rounds
that
day one, 2 rounds day two.
brilliant. So you'll be able to, if nothing else, I'm
I can
sure by
play
day
test
two,
it there.
exactly. The only thing you got to ask people is, hey, do you have anything that, that like infiltrators, you can't deep strike within 12 of them.
Yep.
Cypher, there's a handful of units. There's a Tau model. I
Yep.
can't remember what it is, but it's another one that screens out people. So you'll be at a disadvantage with that. You might just have to run bikes up the side of the table and
Hmm.
sneak into the deployment zone and be like, yeah, okay, there's behind enemy lines. I don't know, something
Yep.
like that. But
Yeah, I'll play with it and see what I can come up with. I mean,
mm.
I can't do any worse. So
It's fortunately this is true. We can't do any worse. Yeah, exactly. There's no
So
harm in trying because
there's no harm in trying it.
there's no
So I'll give it a
further
shot.
bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take some of like what Davey was saying before and really look at,
Mm.
okay, if I'm building it around that kind of deployment, what would I tweak in my list to do that?
Yeah.
Um, and
How
I'll
many
take
units of
that.
bikes do you have?
I have 9 bikes, so I have
Three
3 units
units.
of three.
Yeah, 3 units.
They're 90 points each.
Yeah, it's cheap,
They're
right?
cheap. The big expensive things are the
They're
hecatons,
tough.
and they are tough.
Aren't they
Um,
T6?
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And
Most of the
they're
armies.
the wound pool is 10 wounds, right? Because it's three
Yes.
for each bike, and then the sergeant's bike, for lack of a better word, is like 4 points
Yep.
or four wounds. So, you
Hmm.
know, there's a lot of chunk to get through there.
Hmm.
Yeah, it could be doable. I think it's doable.
I'll
I
take that
think
away.
the list definitely needs the 3 bikes, even if you do tactical, because just their agility, the scouting and the moving, like you just
Yeah.
need that
What I'm
agility.
thinking is I have to actually drop, in order to do that, I think I'd have to drop one of the Hearthguard and go from 3 to 2
Mm,
in order to get another thing of bikes and maybe something else in there because I think the Hearthguard are 160 points for 5 of them.
right.
So I think I would have to drop that. Yeah. And then that would give me, I could maybe drop that and throw another character in and throw another champion in with Deep Strike, and then he could do some locusts and stuff because that's a small footprint that he could get in at.
Well, that's just it, right? Like how many points is an Einherjar champion?
He's 60 points.
I'd buy 5 of them and I would put them in my list
Yeah.
and that's you could 100% do that. Deep strike 2 of them each turn,
Hmm.
uh, and get your behind,
The only
right?
thing is
Starting round two.
I can't deep strike 2 of them. I would have to like deep strike one and then see what happens to them and then maybe deep strike the next one
No,
the
but you're
next turn because
thinking,
I don't have an
remember,
uppy downy for them.
but the advantage of them is they have a 4-up invuln. They're
Yes.
T6
If they have the
and they're small
teleport,
enough.
they don't have the invuln if they've got the teleport
Okay,
crest.
but they're 60 points.
Yes.
So it's 60 points. So
And a
turn
two
two,
save.
you deep strike 2 of them, and they just have to. I guess you might run the risk of being screened out, but hopefully not because they're so small.
Yeah.
And then they're behind something. You're establishing locus with one of them to max out your points, and
Hmm.
the other one's just there to hang out.
Yeah.
And so they kill one. You know what I mean? And then you have the other one still there. So now you're just deep striking one. Like your opponent will be busy dealing with your hecatons, your
Yeah.
bikes, your other stuff that's in their face. I think I would add, how many champions do you have?
I
Two?
have 3.
3? Yeah, 2 more and Bob's your uncle.
Hmm.
For 60, so 120 points for 2 of them. That's an easy way to score points and stay
Hmm.
busy.
It's a good
Lots to think
idea.
about. Lots to think about. Please
Definitely.
throw in your Votan ideas in the comments,
Yeah, much
friends
would
and
be very much
listeners.
appreciated.
And Necron comments. I'm always happy to hear more Necron stuff. Like I'm, I've already left this tournament tweaking my list, trying to think of where to go from here. I don't
Hmm.
want to buy any new models for anything like that. I think it'd be great to add like a Void Dragon, for example, to
Yeah.
just rank up, like, because facing Chase's list where he had like so many heavy, hard to kill units, it's a monster to deal with,
It's
literally.
imposing. Yeah,
It's
and
imposing. It's a lot of work.
you have to sit back and you have to be like the last time I played Chaos, I literally looked at one objective and that had two great unclean
Hmm.
ones, kind of Rodigus and the other one, and I just went, okay, so that's a corner of the table I'm not going to.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
I
you
guess I'm
could
not doing that.
Nurgle's Garden over there.
Hmm.
I'll just play over in this other part and that's what ended up happening was like, okay, and they can extend their Shadow of the Warp because they've got something in no man's land. It's like, okay, I don't have something that can take care of two of those guys. And if I
Right.
do, that's like my entire army dedicated to that. And then I
Yeah.
have nothing else that I'm doing. So it's
Right.
definitely priority targets in that regard.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, everyone, thanks very much for listening. It's much appreciated as always. And please remember to like and subscribe and throw in your list ideas in the comments.
Hmm.
Feel free to throw in things you think we should do next. I know Scott and I have been enjoying doing a lot of interviews and grabbing people to the channel. So if you have grabbing people to bring to the channel, if you have ideas of people we should talk to or anything like that, feel free to throw that in. And
Hmm.
failing that, we guarantee we'll see you in the lower tables in the Consolation League.
See you later.